Hi, I'm Jonathan Sweet. Today I'm joined by Richard Martin. And now, let's talk textiles. Welcome everyone to Talking Textiles. I'm Jonathan Sweet, Director of Content and Member Programs at ATA. The goal of this podcast is to get to know the wide variety of positions and markets that make the advanced textiles world turn. We will be talking to professionals in different roles throughout this series to help inspire the next generation of textile professionals and anyone interested in learning more about others' journey in the world of textiles. ATA offers advanced textiles content throughout the year, including the upcoming Advanced Textiles Expo 2026, taking place November 3rd through 5th in Orlando, Florida. Connect with industry professionals and discover the latest innovations that will drive your business forward. Visit textiles.org/events to learn more. Our featured guest is Richard Martin, Chief Revenue Officer of Pro-Am National Event Services. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And Richard, why don't you start out with telling us a little bit about Pro-Am and your role there?
At Pro-Am, my role is the Chief Revenue Officer, which translates into I am responsible for every penny that comes into the company, whether I like it or not. And sometimes I like it and sometimes I don't. So that's my role within the company. And Pro-Am itself is one of the largest rental companies in the country. And they have stores in multiple states. We have two stores in California, one in Arizona, one in Illinois, and one in Florida. We've grown to that size over the last 8 or 9 years, and with the headquarters being in Phoenix predominantly.
Great. So you recently had an opportunity to work on an interesting project, the UFC 250 event at the White House. How did your team become involved with that event?
The UFC 250, like any event in Washington, D.C., surrounded with many complications and many opportunities. We were fortunate enough to be included in the bid opportunity to try and win that piece of business. And along with another company, we shared the project. So we were hired by Tate, which is a national production company, to do the project and went for a rigorous bid process to do that.
So clearly, like you said, a great opportunity for you guys. As you look at this project, what made it stand out from other large-scale events that your company has worked on?
If you know anything about Pro-Am, you know they do a lot of large scale events. And like other large scale events, they're very complicated. If you add in the dynamic of doing work in DC, at the White House, in front of the nation's eye while you do it, you can imagine the complexity that that brings to the table. And one of the harder things when you're that in the public view, if you like, is, you've got to have special clearance. You've got to make sure you follow the rules. You've got to make sure that you've got a great safety program in place. And everything you're doing is scrutinized to the nth degree. And I think that all of our jobs should meet the criteria, but when you're working on such a dynamic project, I think it's really important to recognize that all them T's and I's need to be dotted with that.
Makes a lot of sense. So obviously the location. This is a unique location for a tented event of this kind. So how did that location change the planning process for you guys compared to a typical event venue?
With doing work in DC, there's various areas of DC you can do some work, but the mall, the Ellipse, the White House are all very significant parts of doing work in DC. Over the years, the majority of the work goes on the mall in front of between the Capitol building and the monument. And to do that, you work with jurisdictions of the Park Service, and they have a certain set of rules. Add in the White House, add in the Ellipse, and it just keeps getting harder and harder to do the work there. And you have to have got some knowledge of how to do that and how to navigate the waters of producing work in DC, specifically when you're so close to the White House. The challenges, I believe, that it brings to the table are not really political, because the groups that manage the areas are not politicized in any way. They're just governing bodies for the areas where you're working. And you might have to work with one group one day on one area of the mall and another group on the ellipse on the other day. And not to mention if you have to go into the White House grounds and do anything on the South Lawn or anything like that's another level again.
That makes a lot of sense. What were some of the considerations that your team took into consideration when you were putting together your bid and thinking about, do we want to bid on this project? Because of the, as you said, logistical challenges and maybe safety concerns and all the different things you got to put in, security concerns, different things you have to put in place. What were some of the things you guys thought about as you prepared for that process?
So when we get the opportunity, we take a look at it as a group of people and we say, here's an opportunity for Pro-Am to participate in a bid. Now let's just call it a bid anywhere in the USA. And it follows no different pattern than that. The first is evaluating the bid to see if it's something that we feel we can produce. Second part of that is if we were to produce this, what are the hurdles in front of us to produce it? And secondly, what are the costs? Thirdly, not secondly, thirdly, what are the costs in producing that, which allows us then to look at that to see if it's something that we want to try and fit into our schedule this year. The one other piece of that is that the schedule in the year, we have times of the year when we're ultra busy. And if all of our stores fall into that September, October window is really the craziest 2 months of the year for most rental companies, and no differently for us. And for us, it's a time of the year when all of our stores are busy. So this falling in June actually helps us a little bit. Our Phoenix stores a little quieter in June. Our Orlando stores a little quieter in June. So we can predominantly use them teams to evaluate the project and see if it's something we want to get involved in. We then have a team of people. We have the VPs from each store come to the table. If a salesperson didn't bring it to the table, we'll dedicate it to a salesperson. And we don't really mind where our salespeople are. They work nationally without geographic boundaries. So we choose the salesperson, and then we choose the store that's going to take the lead in it. So in this case, two stores came together, which was Phoenix and Orlando, to produce this event. We may draw equipment from other stores, but they're the two stores that predominantly were involved in producing it. And then we will choose somebody out of the two to take the lead. In this case, we chose our Orlando store to take the lead on this project. And we dedicate the salesperson, we dedicate the VP from the Orlando store, and then the inventory team from the Orlando store to work on where all the product's going to come from that's needed for this job. And then we sit down and start talking.
And I think that's probably an important takeaway for folks is that you're going to think about these things on any project, wherever the setting is. Are there any, again, speaking generally, when you look at a project, are there any things that you guys are on the lookout for as red flags or potential challenges? And not just this project again, but any big project you might take on.
Is the information you're receiving enough information for you to generate the return for the proposal? That sounds like such a simple thing, but if you take a job, any job, and you go, can we do this job? Or is there enough information to even propose this job? In DC, we know the Park Service is involved. We know the Secret Service is involved. We know all these components exist. We know that there's certain areas where you can stake tents and certain areas where you can't stake tents. Drip lines of trees are critical in DC. It sounds crazy, but staking within the drip line of a tree is forbidden. So you've got to know that. So specifically in this project, you're looking at the drawings, the layout. Do they make sense? Is that enough information for you to build something to give somebody else to evaluate your best foot forward? So I think our experience of working in DC in the past really has led to having some of them questions answered ahead of time. Then the drawing becomes significant. And then the communication between who's asking for the proposal and how you're developing it. You know you're going to be in a competitive situation. We always are in most cases, especially on larger projects. And can you do a good enough job to present what you can do better than anybody else?
So you had talked earlier, obviously about the need, as it would be for any project, for workplace safety and making sure, safe installation and all of that. So while critical on this project, critical on any project, as you said, what systems and training do you guys have in place to make sure you guys have safe operation and safe installations?
Yeah, we're super proud of our safety programs at Pro-Am. We have a lady called Lisa Patterson. She's our director of national safety, and we implement safety training to every employee. Salespeople and all installation people included all have to do OSHA 10. OSHA is a nationally recognized organization that has safety programs for our industry. So every salesperson and installer has to do OSHA 10. That's the basic 10 hours. The 10 relates to how many hours the course takes. And it gives you an understanding of basic safety needs. We follow up that with every lead and occasionally some of the installers, and every project manager has to do OSHA 30, which is a much more intense course that they have to do. So that's a 30-hour program. So they all have to do that. Fortunately, as salespeople, we don't have to do that one. So that gets us off a few hours of our training. And then we have to do fall protection, forklift driving classes, and we have to have certification. Then each person working on the job site has a colored high-vis vest, and the different colors denominate the different classes you've passed in safety. So the lead would have one color vest, and the customer will know I can go to that person, that's a lead, and I know that person's passed OSHA 30. And if we've got a safety concern, we can talk to them. And we promote that through everything that we do at Pro-Am. So Lisa takes the lead on that. She visits every store. She works with the VPs, with the installation crews, the salespeople to understand safety. And she makes sure that we're following the rules that keeps everyone safe. We want everyone to go home at night. And we want to make sure that that's number one in everything that we do is safety.
Obviously, like you said, very important.
Our industry, like ATA, is very much aware of safety and how that has continued to be such a big part of what we do. And ATA, I was part of the board back in the day, so it was many years ago now. I'm really old, so I get to just go along and shake hands now. But ATA has done a great job of developing programs that we also participate in. And some of the studies that they've done with some third-party universities and things like that has also increased the safety knowledge within our industry. So thank you to ATA for doing that. And please keep up the great work that you do with that.
Well, thank you for that. We have a lot of great folks working on our tent part of the association, as well as some great volunteers that help us do those things. So glad to hear that it's helpful for everybody. So with a project like this, I have to imagine there's going to be security clearance issues, maybe some workforce things you have to worry about that you might not have to worry about on a typical job. How did that affect preparation for this project?
Yeah, more and more today, clearance to be on job sites is critical. And I think that, as you can imagine, when you're doing a job in DC, it's another level of that. So other customers in the industry, things like the Super Bowl, the World Cup, things like that, all have a very security conscious criteria for being available to work on the site. DC being exactly the same. So you have to have a background check, and you have to clear that background check to be able to work on a job site. So much as a speeding ticket could flag you and prevent you from working on a project so close to the White House. That also applies for Super Bowl. That also applies for the World Cup and many other mainstream projects that exist. But it's not just an immigration situation. It's more than that. It's actually a background check for the person and what they're about to do. If you've got any convictions, even if they're misdemeanors in any way, that could flag you and prevent you from actually working on a project like this.
That's interesting. It's obviously, I know, trying to preserve the security that's needed in this situation. Was there anything that was an unexpected challenge on this project?
I think the unexpected challenges, specifically with this project, was it was a very fluid project. Um, Generally, projects have a lifespan, and you'll get the initial scope. You'll either win or lose on that initial scope. Then it'll evolve to a certain thing, and then it will settle down to be what it's going to be. I think that it's fair to say that on this project, the fluidity was continuous. And I think that comes from people that want to participate that didn't think they want to participate and increase in scope because of that. Somebody deciding they wanted to spend a little bit more money and make their area a little bit more special. That became a big thing. And I think that the national spotlight, when I can only put it in words of, I have this activation I want to do at UFC 250, right? And that activation could be for anything, right? And I come along, and my initial thought is, I want to do this. I want to build this box. And inside this box, I want some furniture and I want to participate and I want people to see my brand. And it's wonderful. The closer you got to the finish line with this project, the higher up the food chain people were involved that were doing the activations. Suddenly, those people were like, going, "No, I don't want just the box. I want the box with a bow on it, and I want it to be pretty, and I want the world is looking, and I want this." And I think that higher higher ranked individuals within companies doing activations were involved more so than normal, which kept moving the boundaries, which kept increasing the needs, and the fluidity stayed constant throughout due to that.
It makes sense. Obviously, a highly visible event, and
Mhm.
and that brings up another question. So, very visible. If something goes wrong, it's going to be very visible. Not that you want anything to go wrong on any project, but the more visible it is, probably the worse it is. So, how do you prepare for things like the weather, large crowds, the unique requirements on a nationally visible event like this?
So I guarantee something went wrong. I guarantee I never heard of it, and I guarantee it got fixed. So that's number one. You create a production schedule. You have a production schedule, and inside that production schedule, you have benchmarks that you're going to reach as you go along. And that's what we measure each day. So each day has an expectation of where you're going to be at the end of the day. And when people change things and add things, that can change that production schedule. And the first evaluation when that change comes along is, will this impact us finishing on time? Or will this require us to have extra people come into the project? Or any number of things like that we have to do. In most large rental companies, and I recommend in most small rental companies, you have this too, that we take a production schedule, and most of them are digital these days, but I kind of like when you stick it page by page on the wall in the office and you put a red line through when you've done it. And if you go like day one, you don't go by date, you go day one, day two, day three, and score through it when you finish the piece that you're supposed to finish. And you might end up doing something that you were scheduled to do on day three on day one. And that's okay. You just score through ahead of time because there's something you're going to plan to do on day two that you can't now do till day five, right? So there's this balances and checks area that you're going to look at. And through that production schedule is really going to monitor your ability to be successful in what you're doing.
What is the most challenging part of managing a project like this, where you've got so many moving pieces that really have to come together at exactly the right time?
Third-party vendors, trucking, we use third-party truckers. We don't have our own trucking. So if a driver goes missing for a day or half a day, that's a huge issue. So tracking deliveries to make sure you're getting them on time. And if you have equipment, forklifts or boom lifts or scissor lifts that malfunction, having a relationship with a company that can address that if and when it happens, and it does happen quite regularly. If there's a damaged part on one of your tents that you're installing, in this case, the tents, do you have the ability to reach out and find a replacement part, either through buying it or getting it from a friendly competitor? One of the most extraordinary things in our industry is we're kind of a small industry. We're not a very big industry. And most of us, and I say most of us, like I'm going to say 95% of us, actually all help each other because they're going to do a job in your backyard one day and you're going to help them when there's something gone wrong for them and vice versa. So having a relationship with other vendors, other competitors, not just vendors, that they may have been on the job, right? And you're in their backyard building an event, and they're like, oh, why would I help you? And the answer to that is truthfully, we would help them if they were in our backyard building an event and something went wrong. We would definitely help them. So the most challenging part is how to course correct when one of them things happens. And I would say that our industry is a great industry for that. You can talk to most people, and they've all helped a competitor and even a competitor that maybe took a job off them.
Well, and certainly, you're not the first person we've heard say that. People in this industry are usually willing to, as you said, most of them, 95% are willing to help other folks because there's going to come that time probably when they need the help. So it's great to hear you have that experience as well. So kind of as you get there on a project like this, the event begins, everything's running smoothly. What does that moment feel like for you and your team?
So for me, it's pretty easy. I'm usually in an office somewhere watching from afar. For the team, the weather, the climate, is it hot? Is it cold? Is it raining? Is it windy? A funny story for this particular project, we have a new installer working for us. He's young and everybody loves him, right? And he's a good young man, and they're there for a month, right? So they're there for an extended period of time. And one day they're going to do laundry. And this young man was 20 years old and they'd gone to do their laundry and they were all together in, I don't know if they're in the hotel that had a laundry facility or if they were at a laundry facility. I don't know the answer to that part. It became very quick and apparent that the young man had never done his own laundry before. And he progressed to tip all of the laundry detergent into the load, much to the humor of everyone else involved. And we've now sent a message to his mom that he needs to teach him how to do some laundry so that she's saving money on laundry detergent when he travels. That's funny and quirky, but it's a real part of what we do. When you're going somewhere to work and you're there for an extended period of time, how are the guys, how are they eating? Are they eating good? Are they sleeping good? Are they got ability to do laundry? Because it's them who has got to challenge every day to work in the elements and provide a product that we're proud of and they're proud of, right? So I think that the challenges of going to a new city, finding all them nuances to navigate through that and show up for work every day at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. or whatever your start time is. Have your toolbox meeting to talk about how your day is going to go, and then get into the day and then be able to go home at night to your hotel and realize you don't have to go out and drink every night just because you're at a hotel. You can actually go and sit on your bed and watch TV like you would at home. And I think that the education process for the guys that travel to do this for a living is critical to delivering a product that everybody's proud of. And I think that that maturation process is probably very high up on the things that you need to have done pretty good.
That's interesting. I think it's probably something people don't often think about because we have these longer term projects away from home. Maybe, as you said, 20-year-old younger guys and women maybe who aren't as experienced to taking care of themselves. I'm curious, are there any, do some of your veteran guys try to support them a little bit, or what's kind of do you try to do anything to give them a little, some tips before they go off and take work on these jobs?
I think the tips come after they witness you doing the error. I think that they take a lot of fun in poking a little fun at the new guys and everything like that. Assuming the new guys are nice, then they're going to get all the tips and help they need. If they're not so nice, then there's probably going to be a bit of a journey for these guys to get to the point where they need to get to. And sometimes, like with everybody, personalities clash sometimes, and we navigate through that. So we navigate, we're watching very closely. The project managers are watching, the lead guys are watching to make sure that if anything's happening, we're seeing it early enough and dealing with it early enough. And, having young guys, and I use the term guys to mean men and women, just so everybody's clear, right? So having young people come into our industry is one of the hardest things that we do, right? Our industry is full of old people like me, right? And we need the young people to come in, and we need them to see it as a job and a future and a skill set that's good. And the more we can do to encourage that, the better we will be, because that comes from me, that comes from the project managers, that comes from the salespeople, that comes from every area that we have people in. And to encourage young people that this is a industry that can be fun, and you get to, if you're doing it on a national level, you're traveling, you get to put on parties for a living. It's something you get to brag about with your friends that, oh, I was in DC for the UFC 250. Oh, you were? Oh my gosh, who did you see? What did you do? Did you go to any of the museums? Did you? And I think the part of it that I've told many a stories over the years on and lived on for many years is, did you get to go here when you did this? Historically, the truth of the matter is we fly in, we go to the hotel, we go to the job site, we go to the hotel, we go to the job site, and then we go home. And we never go and see anything. So I would also encourage people doing what we do, that tag a couple of days on the back end of your trip and go and see some parts of where you just were for, if you were there for a month. Now spend an extra couple of days and go and ride the open top bus and see all the sights.
It's definitely good advice. Well, thanks for telling us about this project. Very interesting. Is there anything about this event that we didn't talk about that you think would be interesting for folks to know?
We didn't have anything to do with it, but the claw that went over the ring itself, which is the most iconic picture that most people have seen. They've seen that big structure that went over the ring right in front of the White House. That was the shot. You saw the flyover come through from that shot and everything like that. That was uniquely built for this event. So I think that there was other smaller pieces that were uniquely built, but there isn't anybody that I've talked to that was like, wow, that's cool. And I think that was cool. It was cool. Again, it doesn't matter who you are. It's wow, that's pretty impressive. And I was one of them, right? I mean, I've been doing this for 36 years now, I think it is. And I think that was cool. I think it's a cool event.
Great. Just speaking in general, certainly there's always big high profile events. There's this, you mentioned the World Cup. We all are watching that happen right now. Super Bowls, golf tournaments. I mean, there are things going on, but are there any trends you're seeing in those types of events or just generally in the industry that you're seeing as you look around the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think the trend everybody's seeing is that we're going higher. We're elevating up. We're running out of space at current events. Events are charged with getting more money from the same people that go, so they want to create new VIP areas. There's only so much room in front of a stage or in front of a golf hole that you can do. So we're elevating. We're going higher and higher. You're seeing was a day when you used to see two-story 10. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Now you're seeing 3 stories and 4 stories in some cases. And I think that we're going to see that trend continue. That trend is driven by a need. If you think about collegiate sports and to athletes, is driving a need to recognize more money from the sports that they're promoting, uh, which then the agencies are coming on board to drive, okay, how do we maximize the revenue from the event that we're doing? And how do we, if I'm going to get 100,000 people at an event, I can't get more than 100,000. So how do I get more from the 100,000? And that is creating elevated experiences and elevated product. So I think that you're going to see the dynamic of the tents, if you like, elevated structures, if you like. You're going to see them go higher and be more elaborate. And that's all in the drive to get more from the same.
All right. Well, Richard, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts with us today about this project, about the industry. It's all been very interesting, and we look forward to seeing what comes next for Pro-Am and for you guys out there.
Thanks for having me.
So again, thanks for joining us, and everyone, thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of ATA Talking Textiles. ATA is a not-for-profit association representing the international specialty fabrics marketplace. Learn more about the events, workshops, and webinars ATA hosts throughout the year at textiles.org/events.